Chapter 1. The Bleeding Shadow. The key turned in the rusted lock with a sound like breaking bone. Isolde Grey stood at the threshold of Thornwick Manor's wine cellar, lantern trembling in her grip, and wondered if grief had finally stolen her reason. 3 days since her grandmother's funeral. 3 days of rain hammering the estate's slate roof, while lawyers shuffled papers and spoke of inheritance she'd never wanted. 3 days of portraits watching her from cobwebbed walls, their painted eyes following her through corridors that smelled of roses and rot. And now this. The sound that had woken her at midnight. Not rats. Not wind. Breathing. The cellar exhaled cold air that tasted of earth and something darker, something that made her pulse quicken with an instinct older than thought. Her nightgown clung to her legs as she descended stone steps worn smooth by centuries of footfalls. The lantern's glow pushed weakly against shadows that seemed to have weight, texture, hunger. Hello? Her voice fractured in the darkness. The breathing stopped. Isolde's hand found the iron railing, steadying herself against the sudden silence. Ahead, rows of wine racks stretched into blackness, bottles thick with dust. Her grandmother had never touched them, had forbidden anyone from entering this space. Some doors are meant to stay locked, child. Some thirsts should never be acknowledged. She should leave. Fetch the constable from the village. Let someone else investigate the source of. A whimper. So soft, she almost missed it. So human, it shattered her hesitation. Isolde pushed forward, lantern held high, until the light caught something that made her breath stop. A man. No, not quite. He lay crumpled against the far wall. Beneath a grate that opened to the night garden above, rain dripped through the iron bars, pooling around his body in dark rivulets that looked too thick, too dark to be water alone. His coat was torn, revealing a chest that rose and fell with shallow effort. Long dark hair fell across a face of such terrible beauty that Isolde felt her throat tighten. But his eyes. They were wrapped in cloth, stained with old blood. Blindfold or bandage, she couldn't tell. Please. His voice was cultured, careful, edged with pain that seemed older than the stones around them. Please. Don't scream. Isolde's hand covered her mouth, but not to scream. The wounds covering his body cuts that wept slowly, as if his blood moved differently than hers. They should have killed him. Would have killed anyone else. You're hurt. The words escaped before reason could stop them. His head turned toward her voice with predatory precision. Even blind, he tracked her perfectly. You shouldn't be here. This place. He coughed, and something dark spotted his lips. It's not safe. I'm not safe. You're bleeding to death in my cellar. Your cellar? A sound between a laugh and a sob. Then she's dead. Your grandmother. The woman who kept this door locked for 40 years. Isolde knelt beside him, setting the lantern down. Up close, his skin held a pallor that spoke of something beyond mere injury. No fever heat radiated from him. Instead, he felt like marble cold and ancient and impossibly still. How did you know her? She knew what I was. His hand lifted, trembling, toward her face but stopping inches away. What I am, and she was merciful enough to let me hide here. To keep me contained when the hunger grew too strong. To ensure I hurt no one. His fingers were elegant, long, tipped with nails that seemed sharper than they should be. A scholar's hands. A killer's hands. I don't understand. But Isolde. Some part of her, bred from generations of gray women who'd kept secrets in this house, understood perfectly. You should go. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Lock the door. Board it over. Forget you found me here. I'll be dead by morning. Instead, Isolde reached for the cloth binding his eyes. He caught her wrist with impossible speed, his grip iron cold. Don't. Why not? Because when you see what I am, when you look into my eyes and see the monster your grandmother imprisoned, you'll run, and I'll be alone when the darkness finally takes me. His voice cracked on the last word. I've been alone for so long already. Something in Isolde's chest fractured. This creature, this man who spoke of monsters and hunger, who warned her away even as death claimed him, who trembled with more than pain. She'd been alone too. Grandmother cold in the ground. Parents lost years ago to influenza. No siblings, no cousins. No one but portraits and memories in this crumbling estate. Tell me your name, she said. A long silence. Rain continued its percussion through the grate above. Thaddeus. He released her wrist. Thaddeus Ravencroft. Though that name died with the man I was, centuries ago. Centuries? I'm old, Isolde Grey. Older than this house. Older than the village beyond these walls. I've walked through ages and seen empires crumble. And in all that time, no one has. He stopped, turning his face away. No one has asked my name with kindness. Isolde's hand moved to his chest, feeling for the worst wounds. Her grandmother had been the village healer, had taught her the art of needle and thread, of poultices and prayer. But she'd never explained why the medicine cabinet held silver instruments wrapped in velvet. Why certain herbs hung in bundles marked with symbols Isolde couldn't read. Why the cellar door had 3 locks instead of 1. I can help you, she said. You can't. I can try. Thaddeus's breath hitched. His hand found hers where it pressed against his wounds, covering it with fingers that shook. The hunger. I haven't fed properly in weeks. Your grandmother brought me alternatives, animal blood. Enough to keep the worst at bay, but without her, you'll die, or I'll become what I've spent 300 years fighting against. His jaw clenched. A mindless thing. All hunger and violence. The monster they hunted me for becoming in the first place. Isolde looked at the wounds covering his body. Silver burns, she realized now. Someone had tried to kill him with silver weapons. Had succeeded, perhaps, in stealing his sight. But not his life. Not yet. Then we have work to do. She stood, retrieving her lantern. I'll need bandages. Clean water, and you'll need to tell me everything what you are, what you need, why my grandmother locked you down here. Isolde. That's an order, Mr. Ravencroft. She started toward the stairs, then paused. And I'll decide for myself what I see when I look at you. Behind her, in the darkness, she heard him whisper something that sounded like prayer, or curse, or promise. As you wish. The cellar door closed behind her, but Isolde didn't lock it. Something had changed in the space between heartbeats. Some door inside herself had opened that she couldn't close again. Upstairs, thunder rolled across Thornwick Manor's slate roof, and in the cellar below, a blind vampire who'd warned her away pressed his hand to his chest, where her touch still burned like sunlight, like hope, like the beginning of something that would damn them both. Chapter 2, The Blood Bargain. Dawn found Isolde descending the cellar stairs with an armful of supplies she couldn't fully explain. The silver medical instruments from her grandmother's cabinet. Bandages torn from the oldest, finest linen. A basin of heated water that steamed in the cold air. And hidden beneath a cloth, a knife sharp enough to draw blood with barely a whisper of pressure. Thaddeus hadn't moved from where she'd left him. He sat with his back against the stone wall, head tilted as if listening to sounds beyond human hearing. The blindfold remained in place, dark with old stains that might have been blood or tears or both. You came back. His voice held surprise and something deeper, something that sounded like relief. I said I would. Isolde knelt beside him, setting down her burden. I need to see your wounds properly. All of them. The light won't help you see what needs seeing. Then explain it to me. He was silent for a long moment. Outside, birds began their morning chorus, their songs filtering through the grate above. Normal sounds. Living sounds. They seemed obscene in this space where death lingered so close. I'm dying, Thaddeus said finally. Or rather, my body is trying to die. It's been trying for 300 years. That's what we are, death suspended. Corpses given terrible purpose. And like all corpses, we decay without proper sustenance. Isolde unwrapped a bandage, studying his torn coat. Blood. Yes. My grandmother brought you animal blood. She was merciful. Most vampire hunters aren't. His mouth twisted. Most would have staked me the moment they found me. Instead, she offered sanctuary, a place to hide when the bloodlust grew too strong. She even tried to cure me. Spent years researching old texts, mixing potions, praying over silver instruments. Did it work? No. The word carried centuries of exhaustion. There is no cure for what I am. Only management. Only eternal vigilance against the monster that whispers in my veins. Isolde reached for his coat, beginning to ease it from his shoulders. His hand caught hers again, that same iron-cold grip that belied his weakness. Don't. I need to clean your wounds. They're not wounds that clean water will heal. But he released her, fingers trailing away slowly. And when you see what lies beneath this coat, you'll understand why your grandmother kept me locked away. Isolde didn't argue. She simply continued her work, peeling back layers of cloth until his torso lay bare in the lantern light. Her breath caught. Silver burns traced patterns across his chest like some terrible map. But beneath them, his skin held an unearthly perfection, pale as moonlight, smooth as marble, marked with scars that looked centuries old. No heartbeat moved beneath her hand when she touched him. No pulse flickered in his throat. Just stillness. Perfect, terrible stillness. You're not breathing, she whispered. I don't need to, not the way you do. I breathe out of habit. Memory, a pretense of humanity I can't quite abandon. Thaddeus' head fell back against the stone. Do you understand now? I'm a walking corpse. An animated thing that drinks blood to maintain the illusion of life. Your grandmother understood. That's why she kept me here, contained, where I couldn't hurt anyone. Isolde's hands moved over the silver burns, recognizing the pattern now. Someone had tried to cage him, to bind him with silver chains. Who did this to you? Hunters. The Order of the Sacred Dawn. They've pursued me for decades, ever since I. He stopped, jaw clenching. It doesn't matter. What matters is they know I'm here. They followed me to this estate. They're the reason I'm dying, not just from the wounds, but because they poisoned the silver, a toxin that prevents healing even for creatures, like me. There must be something. There is. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Living blood, not animal, human, fresh and freely given. It's the only thing powerful enough to counteract the poison, to give my body strength enough to heal. Understanding crashed over Isolde like cold water. You need to feed. From me. No. The word came out sharp as breaking glass. I won't. I've spent 300 years learning control. Learning to resist the hunger. Your grandmother helped me maintain that control. Without her. His hands fisted against his thighs. I'm barely holding on. The scent of you this close, your pulse singing in your veins, it's taking everything I have not to. He stopped, breathing hard despite not needing air. Isolde reached for the knife beneath the cloth. What are you doing? Thaddeus's head snapped toward her, tracking the movement with predatory precision. You said freely given. She pressed the blade to her wrist, above the pulse point. So I'm giving it freely. Isolde. No. You saved someone, didn't you? That's why the hunters want you dead. Not because you're a monster, but because you chose humanity over hunger. She could see it in the way he held himself. The rigid control. The desperate restraint. My grandmother wouldn't have protected you otherwise. She wouldn't have kept you safe for 40 years if you were just another killer. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. Thaddeus's hands trembled. The first taste of living blood, after deprivation, it's not gentle. It's not romantic. It's violent and raw, and I might not be able to stop once I start. I could kill you, Isolde. Drain you until your heart stops beating, and I'd hate myself for eternity. But you'd still be dead. But you haven't. In 300 years, you've learned control. Trust it now. I can't risk you. Isolde drew the knife across her wrist, in one swift motion. Blood welled, dark and rich, filling the cellar with a scent that made Thaddeus's entire body go rigid. Too late, she said softly. Now you have to choose. Let me bleed out while you die of principle. Or trust that you're stronger than your hunger. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then Thaddeus lunged. He caught her wrist with both hands, pulling it toward his mouth with a sound that was half snarl, half sob. His tongue found the wound, and Isolde gasped at the sensation, not pain, but something deeper. Something that felt like electricity and ice and fire all at once. His mouth sealed over her wrist, and she felt him drink. Not the gentle sipping of wine. This was primal, desperate. His throat worked as he swallowed, his hands clenching around her arm hard enough to bruise. The blindfold hid his eyes, but she could see his face transform, jaw unhinging slightly, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too long. Predator teeth. Monster teeth. Beautiful teeth. Isolde's vision swam. Her free hand found his hair, tangling in the dark strands, holding him close instead of pushing away. The cellar tilted around her, But she didn't care. She could feel it, the poison leaving his system. The silver burns beginning to heal, his body drawing strength from her blood, her life, her choice. Thaddeus, she whispered, it's enough. He didn't stop. Thaddeus. Firmer now. Though her voice wavered, you have to stop. His mouth tore away from her wrist with a gasp. He released her immediately, scrambling backward until he hit the far wall. Her blood stained his lips, his chin. His chest heaved with unnecessary breaths. I'm sorry, he choked out. God, I'm so sorry. I nearly, but you didn't. Isolde pressed her uninjured hand to the wound, applying pressure. Already, it had stopped bleeding heavily. A clean cut, deliberate, controlled. You stopped when I asked. I shouldn't have started. I gave you no choice. Thaddeus pressed his hands to his face, fingers digging into the blindfold. You should leave, now. While I still have the strength to let you go. Instead, Isolde rose on shaking legs and moved toward him. Her hand found his shoulder, and she felt him flinch under her touch, not with revulsion, but with longing so intense it bordered on pain. My grandmother kept you here for 40 years, she said quietly, protected you, fed you, cared for you. Why? Because she understood loneliness. His voice broke. Because she'd lost her own love to an illness I couldn't cure. Because she knew what it was to be isolated by grief and circumstance. And because he turned his face toward her, blindfold still concealing his eyes. Because she believed monsters could choose redemption. Then I'll believe it too. Isolde. I'm not leaving you down here to die. I'm not locking that door and pretending you don't exist. She knelt beside him again, close enough to feel the cold radiating from his body. Whatever this is, whatever you are, we'll figure it out together. Thaddeus's hand lifted, hovering near her face. Not touching. Not daring to touch. You'll regret this kindness, he whispered. Maybe. Isolde caught his hand, pressing it to her cheek. His fingers were warmer now, fed by her blood. Still cold, but less like death. But it's mine to give. Outside, morning sun climbed over Thornwick Manor's gardens. And in the cellar below, a blind vampire who'd forgotten how to hope felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked away for centuries. Something terrifying and wonderful and utterly doomed. What have you done? He breathed. Isolde smiled, though he couldn't see it. I've decided to be reckless. Chapter 3, The Watcher in the Walls. 3 nights passed in a rhythm that felt both foreign and inevitable. Isolde would descend to the cellar at dusk, arms laden with supplies, bandages that no longer needed changing, food Thaddeus couldn't eat but insisted she consume in his presence, and books from her grandmother's collection. Old volumes bound in cracked leather, their pages filled with symbols and sketches that looked like medical diagrams crossed with liturgical texts. Vampire anatomy, blood rituals, the history of the cursed. Your grandmother was thorough, Thaddeus observed, his fingers trailing over a page embossed with silver. Even now, days after feeding, the metal made him flinch. She spent decades researching my condition, trying to understand what I'd become. Did she ever ask you to leave? Once. He sat with his back against the cellar wall, surrounded by the books Isolde had brought down. The blindfold remained in place. He'd refused her every attempt to remove it. When I first arrived, wounded and half mad with hunger, she wanted to help me move on, find somewhere else to hide. But I was being hunted, and she. He paused. She saw something in me worth saving, even when I couldn't see it myself. Isolde sat across from him, studying the way shadows played across his features. His wounds had healed completely, the silver burns fading to faint scars. Her blood had done that. Her choice. The wound on her wrist had healed too, leaving only a thin line. But she could still feel it, the ghost of his mouth, his hunger, his restraint. You still won't let me see your eyes. No. Why? Thaddeus's jaw tightened. Because once you do, this fragile thing between us will shatter. You'll see what I truly am. Not the scholar who speaks in careful words. Not the gentleman who remembers his manners. You'll see the predator. The thing that hungers for you in ways that have nothing to do with blood and everything to do with possession. The air between them grew charged. You think I don't already know? Isolde leaned forward. You think I can't feel the way you track my pulse? The way your hands shake when I come too close? I'm not a child, Thaddeus. And I'm not afraid. You should be. Perhaps. She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. His skin was cool but no longer death cold. Her life still moved through him. But fear and knowledge aren't the same thing. Tell me about your eyes. Tell me what you're hiding. He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, quietly, they glow. When the hunger rises, when emotion runs strong, they glow red like coals. Like hellfire. It's a mark of what I am. What I'll always be, no matter how much control I master. And you think that will frighten me? It should. Show me. Isolde. Show me. She squeezed his hand. Let me decide what frightens me. Thaddeus's free hand moved to the blindfold, fingers trembling against the cloth. For a moment, she thought he would refuse. Then, slowly, he began unwinding the stained fabric. Layer by layer, the blindfold fell away. And Isolde found herself staring into eyes that stole her breath. They were red. Not the red of blood or rubies, but something deeper. Crimson shot through with gold, with darkness, with centuries of hunger and loneliness and barely contained violence. They glowed in the cellar's dim light, catching the lantern flame and reflecting it back in twin points of unholy luminescence. Monster eyes. Predator eyes. Beautiful, terrible, haunted eyes. Now you see, Thaddeus said, his voice rough. Now you. Isolde kissed him. She didn't think, didn't plan, just moved forward and pressed her mouth to his in a collision of warmth and cold that made her gasp. His lips were soft despite everything else about him being hard edges and restraint. For one heartbeat, he froze. Then his hands came up to frame her face with a tenderness that belied his nature. The kiss lasted only seconds. When Isolde pulled back, those glowing eyes were wide with shock. You kissed me, he breathed. I did. Why? Because you expected me to scream. To run. To see you as a monster. Isolde's thumb traced his cheekbone. But all I see is someone who's been alone for far too long. Thaddeus made a sound between a laugh and a sob. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, his eyes closing. When they opened again, the glow had softened, still there, still unmistakably inhuman, but gentler. Almost vulnerable. You're dangerous, he whispered. Says the vampire. No. You're dangerous because you make me want things I gave up centuries ago. Hope. Connection. His hands slid into her hair. A future that doesn't end with me alone in the darkness. Isolde's heart hammered against her ribs. Then don't be alone. The hunters are still searching for me. They'll come here eventually. They always do. Then we'll be ready. You don't understand what you're offering. If you're connected to me, if they discover you've harbored me, fed me, they'll kill you too. The order doesn't forgive those who protect my kind. My grandmother protected you for 40 years. And she's dead. The words fell between them like stones. How do you think she really died, Isolde? The village doctor said natural causes, but I heard her last breath from down here. I heard the way it caught. The way she fought for air that wouldn't come. His voice cracked. Someone poisoned her. Someone who suspected she was hiding me. Cold horror washed over Isolde. The order? I don't know, but 3 days after her death, I was attacked. Silver weapons, poison. They knew exactly where to find me, exactly when I'd be most vulnerable. Your grandmother's death wasn't coincidence. It was strategy. Isolde's hands fisted in his shirt. Then we need to leave, both of us, tonight. I can't. Why not? Because I'm bound to this place. Thaddeus gently pulled away from her, creating distance that felt like miles. Your grandmother didn't just offer me sanctuary, she trapped me here. Blood magic, old rituals. I can't leave the manor grounds without her permission, and she's dead. Understanding settled like ice in Isolde's stomach. You're a prisoner. A willing one. It was the only way she could protect both of us, ensure I couldn't harm the village, and ensure the hunters couldn't track me if I fled. But now. He gestured to the cellar around them. I'm chained here. And you've inherited more than just an estate, Isolde Grey. You've inherited responsibility for a monster who can't escape. Footsteps echoed above them. Heavy, deliberate, multiple sets. Thaddeus's head snapped up, those red eyes blazing brighter. Someone's in the house. The servants don't come until morning. It's not servants. He moved with inhuman speed, positioning himself between Isolde and the cellar stairs. Hide, now. I'm not leaving you. They're here for me. His voice dropped to a growl that raised every hair on Isolde's neck. And if they find you with me, you're dead. Please, Isolde. Hide. The cellar door burst open. 3 figures descended, silhouetted against lamplight from above. They wore long coats marked with silver thread, and each carried weapons that gleamed with holy intention, crossbows loaded with silver bolts, blades etched with prayers, vials that might contain holy water or something worse. Hunters. The leader stepped forward, a woman with gray-streaked hair pulled severe from a face carved from stone and conviction. Her gaze swept the cellar, cataloging every detail, before landing on Thaddeus Ravencroft. Her voice rang with authority. In the name of the sacred dawn, you are condemned. For crimes against humanity. For the murder of 17 souls. For the corruption of the innocent. I haven't killed anyone in 300 years. Thaddeus said quietly. Lies. She raised her crossbow. We know what you are. What you've always been. A predator wearing human skin. And we know about her. The crossbow swung toward where Isolde crouched behind a wine rack. The girl who feeds you, who perpetuates your existence, who will die alongside you. Isolde stepped into the light. This is my property, leave. Now. The hunter smiled cold, sharp, merciless. Your grandmother was weak, sentimental, she believed this creature could be redeemed. We showed her the truth before she died. You killed her. The words ripped from Isolde's throat. We freed her from delusion. The hunter's finger moved to the trigger. Now we'll free you. Thaddeus moved. He was a blur of shadow and speed, crossing the cellar in an instant. His hand caught the crossbow, crushing it to twisted metal before the bolt could fly. The other 2 hunters fired, but he was already moving, dodging, weaving, impossibly fast. One bolt grazed his shoulder. He didn't even flinch. Run. He shouted at Isolde. Get out of here. But she couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Could only watch as Thaddeus fought 3 trained hunters with a grace that was terrible and mesmerizing. He didn't kill them, she realized that with shock. He disarmed them, disabled them, moved with precision, designed to incapacitate without ending lives. Even now, even facing those who'd murdered his protector, he chose restraint. The leader recovered faster than the others. She drew a blade etched with silver and prayers, slashing at Thaddeus's chest. Blood welled black in the lantern light. He gasped, stumbling back. Isolde. His voice was desperate. The book on the table, the red one, read the passage, marked with ribbon. She didn't question. Grabbed the volume he'd indicated, flipping to a page marked with blood-stained silk. The text was in Latin, but notes in her grandmother's hand translated the words. A binding may be broken by blood and will. By sacrifice freely given and covenant acknowledged. Understanding crashed over her. Your blood. Thaddeus dodged another strike. Add your blood to mine on the binding sigil, the circle carved into the floor, near the grate. Isolde saw it now. A complex symbol etched into stone. So old it had worn nearly smooth. She ran to it, pulling the knife from her pocket, reopening the wound on her wrist. No. The hunter leader lunged at her. Don't. Thaddeus caught the woman mid-leap, throwing her back with force that should have been impossible for his injured state. Finish it. Isolde's blood dripped onto the carved symbol. The stone began to glow, faint at first, then brighter, silver-white light spreading through the etched lines, like veins of luminescence. I release him, she said, not knowing if the words mattered, only knowing they felt true. By blood and will. I release Thaddeus Ravencroft from this binding. The light exploded. Magic, old, powerful, hungry, roared through the cellar. The binding shattered with an audible crack, invisible chains breaking. Thaddeus cried out, dropping to his knees as power coursed through him. And his eyes, those glowing red eyes, blazed like stars. You've doomed us all, the hunter whispered. Then darkness swallowed everything. Chapter 4, The Covenant of Crimson. Isolde woke to silence. Not the ordinary quiet of night, but something deeper, the profound stillness that comes after violence, when even the walls hold their breath. She lay on cold stone, her wrists throbbing where blood had been spilled. The cellar grate above, let in moonlight that painted everything in shades of silver and shadow. Memory returned in fragments. The hunters. The binding. Light that had exploded through centuries-old magic. Thaddeus. She pushed herself upright, head swimming. The 3 hunters lay unconscious against the far wall, carefully arranged and breathing steadily. Alive, but bound with what looked like rope that glowed faintly with the same light that had broken Thaddeus's chains. And Thaddeus himself stood at the top of the cellar stairs, his back to her, perfectly motionless. "You're awake," he said without turning. "What happened? You broke the binding." His voice carried something she'd never heard before, awe mixed with terror. "Magic your grandmother spent years weaving, protections that kept me contained for 4 decades. You shattered it with 6 words and a few drops of blood." Isolde stood on shaking legs. "Because you asked me to. Because I was desperate." Finally, he turned. Those red eyes blazed in the darkness, brighter than before. Brighter than should be possible. "I thought breaking the binding would let me flee with you, save us both from the hunters. But it did more than that, Isolde, it did something I never intended." He descended the stairs with predatory grace, each movement flowing like water. The wound on his chest had healed completely. In fact, he looked stronger than she'd ever seen him, less like a man clinging to existence and more like something ancient and powerful finally unchained. "What did it do?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "It bound us together." Thaddeus stopped an arm's length away. "Your blood on the sigil. Your will spoken over the breaking. The magic didn't just release me from this place, it tied me to you. I can feel your heartbeat as if it were my own. Sense your emotions like flavor on my tongue. You're." He pressed a hand to his chest. "You're inside me now. Part of me." Understanding crashed through Isolde like ice water. "A blood bond." "Yes." The word was barely a whisper. "The one thing I've avoided for 3 centuries. The connection that makes a vampire and their companion inseparable. I never wanted this. Never wanted to trap someone in the darkness with me. Yet here we are. Yet here we are." His hand lifted toward her face, then dropped. "I can undo it. There are rituals, counter spells. Your grandmother's books contain the knowledge. It will take time, but I can free you from." Isolde stepped forward and took his hand. His fingers were warm now, actually warm, fed by her blood, bound by her choice, no longer the cold of death but something in between twilight given flesh. "What if I don't want to be freed?" Thaddeus's eyes widened. "You don't understand what you're saying. A blood bond isn't temporary, it's not romantic, it's eternal. It means you'll feel my hunger, my rage. Every dark impulse I've spent lifetimes suppressing. And I'll feel your fear when you finally understand what I am. I already understand what you are." She brought his hand to her cheek. "You're someone who's been fighting his nature for 300 years, who starved rather than kill, who protected my grandmother's secret at the cost of your own freedom, who disarmed hunters without ending their lives. That doesn't make me good. It makes me a monster with a conscience. Then I choose the monster." Isolde held his glowing gaze. "I choose you." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The cellar held its breath. Even the unconscious hunters seemed to lean toward this moment, as if sensing the weight of words that couldn't be unsaid. Then Thaddeus pulled her against him with a sound between relief and despair. His arms wrapped around her, strong and desperate, holding her like she might disappear. His face buried in her hair, breathing in her scent even though he didn't need breath. And Isolde felt it, that connection he'd described. A warmth spreading through her chest that wasn't her own. His emotions bleeding into hers. Loneliness so deep it had its own weight. Hope so fragile it trembled. Hunger that was both blood desire and something more human. The need for touch, for connection, for someone to see him as more than a curse. "What have you done to me?" he whispered against her hair. "What you did to me," she answered, "made me want impossible things." He pulled back enough to look at her, those red eyes searching her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone with reverence that bordered on worship. "The bond works both ways. You feel what I feel. But I feel you too. Your heartbeat is mine now. Your life force sustains me more than blood ever could. If you die." His voice cracked. "If you die. I die. Truly die." No resurrection, no continuing, just end. Then we'd better keep each other alive. Isolde. No. She pressed her fingers to his lips, silencing him. No more warnings. No more pushing me away for my own good. I made my choice with open eyes. Now you have to make yours. Will you run from this? Spend however long we have trying to break what we've created, or will you stay? Will you let me in? Thaddeus caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent electricity through her veins. I've been alone for so long. I don't remember how to be anything else. Then we'll learn together. A sound from across the cellar interrupted them. The hunter leader was stirring, consciousness returning. Her eyes opened, focusing on Isolde and Thaddeus with hatred that could cut stone. Abomination, she spat. You've bonded yourself to a killer. When the Order learns of this, the Order will learn nothing. Thaddeus's voice dropped to something ancient and commanding. Because you'll forget what happened here. All three of you. Vampire compulsion doesn't work on us. We're protected by your faith, your silver? His eyes blazed brighter. I wasn't trying to compel you before. I was contained, weakened, barely holding on to existence. But now? He moved toward her with fluid grace. Now I'm free, now I'm fed. And now I'll show you why your precious Order has hunted me for centuries. Not because I'm weak. Because I'm dangerous when I choose to be. His hand touched the hunter's forehead. Power rolled through the cellar like thunder. The woman's eyes went wide, then glassy. Her companions stirred, and Thaddeus moved to them with the same touch, gentle, precise, terrible. What are you doing? Isolde asked, rewriting their memories. Making them believe they found nothing here. That your grandmother died of natural causes, that the vampire they hunted is long gone. His voice carried exhaustion now, the power taking its toll. It won't last forever. Eventually they'll remember. But it buys us time. Time for what? He looked at her over his shoulder, those glowing eyes full of dark promise. Time to prepare. Time to plan. Time to decide if we're going to spend eternity running from my past or facing it. He finished with the third hunter, then swayed slightly. The power drain was visible now, in the way he braced himself against the wall. Time for you to understand exactly what you've bound yourself to. Isolde crossed to him, slipping under his arm to support his weight. He was heavy with exhaustion, the magic and earlier violence catching up to him. Let's get you upstairs. Somewhere more comfortable than a cellar. Isolde, I can't enter your living spaces without permission. The threshold, then I give you permission. She met his gaze. Freely and completely. You're not a prisoner here anymore. This is your home now. Our home. Something in Thaddeus's expression cracked. He leaned into her, letting her guide him toward the stairs, and Isolde felt the full weight of what she'd done. Not regret, never regret, but understanding. She'd bound herself to a creature of night and hunger, given him access to every part of her life, her home, her future. One decision had changed everything. Behind them, the three hunters slept dreamlessly. Above them, Thornwick Manor waited in darkness. And ahead lay a path neither of them could see clearly. But they would walk it together. For better or worse. For eternity. Isolde helped Thaddeus through the cellar door, up the stairs, into the manor proper. He hesitated at each threshold, old instinct, warring with new reality. But she held him steady, whispering permissions and welcomes until he crossed into the main hall. Morning was still hours away. The manor stretched around them in shadow and silence, every portrait seeming to watch this strange procession, mortal woman and vampire lord, bound by blood and choice, walking toward a future that terrified them both. Where? Thaddeus asked, his voice rough with fatigue. My room. Isolde guided him toward the stairs. You need rest. Real rest. And I need. She paused. I need to know you're safe. I'm the thing that goes bump in the night. Nothing is safer than me. Then I need to feel safe from my own fear. She looked up at him. Because part of me is still terrified. And part of me has never felt more certain of anything, and I need time to reconcile those parts. They climbed in silence until they reached her bedroom. Thaddeus stopped at the threshold again, but this time Isolde simply took his hand and pulled him inside. The room was modest inherited furniture, faded wallpaper, windows that overlooked the gardens. Her grandmother's influence was everywhere, from the dried herbs hanging by the vanity to the old medical texts stacked on the bedside table. Thaddeus moved to the window, staring out at darkness that was beginning to gray with approaching dawn. I haven't seen sunrise in 300 years. Can't see it. The moment the sun touches my skin, I burn. Then we'll make sure you're safe before dawn. Isolde closed the curtains, plunging the room into deeper shadow. Sleep. I'll watch. You need rest more than I do. Then we'll both rest. She sat on the bed, patting the space beside her. Together. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then, slowly, he crossed to her, sat beside her, and when she lay back against the pillows, he followed, curling around her with careful restraint. His body was cool but no longer cold. His breath stirred her hair, and through the bond, she could feel his emotions: wonder, fear, gratitude, hunger controlled and channeled into something softer. Protection, devotion, love, perhaps, or the beginning of it. Isolde? His voice was soft in the darkness. Yes? Thank you. 2 words, barely whispered, but they carried the weight of centuries. Thank you for seeing me. She laced her fingers through his. Thank you for letting me. Outside, night surrendered to dawn. But inside Thornwick Manor, in a bedroom shielded from the sun, a mortal woman and an ancient vampire lay entwined. 2 souls bound by blood and choice. 2 hearts beating, one by nature, one by magic. 2 futures, now irrevocably one. And in that moment before sleep claimed them both, Isolde felt the bond settle into place. Not a chain, but a promise. Not a trap, but a choice made and remade with every breath. She'd bound herself to darkness. And somehow, impossibly, found light within it. Chapter 5. Shadows of the Past. Thaddeus' point of view. I woke to the unfamiliar sensation of warmth. Not heat, I'd long ago lost the ability to generate that, but the radiance that came from another living being pressed against me. Isolde lay in my arms, her heartbeat steady and strong, her breath slow with deep sleep. Through the bond, I felt her dreams like whispers against my consciousness. She was dreaming of her grandmother, of gardens in summer, of safety. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here she slept, cradled by a creature who represented everything unsafe, everything unholy, everything her grandmother had tried to protect her from. Yet through our connection, I could feel no fear in her. Only contentment, only peace. It terrified me more than any hunter's blade ever had. 300 years I'd walked in darkness. 300 years of hunger and isolation, of watching humans from the shadows and remembering, always remembering what it felt like to be one of them. I'd forgotten so much. The taste of food, the warmth of sunlight, the simple pleasure of waking beside someone who chose to stay. But I remembered the guilt. God, I remembered the guilt. 17 souls. That's what the hunter had said. 17 people whose blood I'd spilled in those first terrible months after my transformation. 17 lives ended because I couldn't control the hunger. Couldn't resist the instinct that turned me from gentleman scholar into mindless predator. I still saw their faces when I closed my eyes. Still heard their screams. Still felt their final heartbeats against my tongue. That's why I'd isolated myself. Why I'd accepted Margaret Gray's offer of imprisonment 40 years ago. Why I'd starved myself to the brink of true death rather than risk hurting anyone else. And now I lay in her granddaughter's bed, bound to her by magic and blood, with my curse woven through her very being. What had I done? Isolde stirred against me, consciousness returning. Through the bond, I felt her awareness bloom, first confusion at waking in unfamiliar arms, then recognition, then something that felt dangerously close to happiness. You're awake, she murmured against my chest. I don't sleep much. The dead rarely do. She tilted her head back to look at me. In the darkness behind drawn curtains, her eyes adjusted slowly, but she could see me well enough. See the way my eyes glowed even now, fed and rested but still inhuman. Still wrong. Tell me about them, she said quietly. I went still. About who? The 17 people. The ones the hunters mentioned. Tell me what happened. Every instinct screamed at me to deflect, to lie, to protect her from the monster I'd been. But the bond wouldn't let me hide. She could feel my resistance, my shame, my desperate desire to be anything other than what I was. You don't want to know that story. I do. Her hand found my chest, pressing over the place where a heartbeat should be. Because whatever happened, you've spent centuries atoning for it, and I need to understand why. I closed my eyes, remembering. I was turned against my will. Attacked in the streets of London by a creature I didn't know existed. He drained me to the point of death, then forced his blood into my mouth. Made me drink until transformation took hold. When I woke, I was alone in an alley with hunger tearing through my veins like wildfire. Isolde's hand tightened on my chest, offering comfort I didn't deserve. I tried to resist. I was a scholar, a man of science and reason. I thought I could control it through willpower alone. For 3 days, I succeeded. But hunger like that, it doesn't fade. It grows. Consumes. Until there's nothing left but instinct. What happened on the 4th day? I killed a woman. The words tasted like ash. A servant girl walking home after dark. I told myself I'd only take a little. Just enough to stop the pain. But once I started, I pressed my face against Isolde's hair, breathing in her scent, alive, warm, innocent, and hating myself. I couldn't stop. I drained her completely. Left her body in the street like refuse. Silence stretched between us. Through the bond, I felt Isolde processing this, her emotions complex horror, yes, but also compassion, understanding. How could she understand? The guilt nearly destroyed me. I continued. But the hunger was stronger. Over the next month, I killed 16 more people. Each time, I swore it would be the last. Each time, I failed. Until I attacked the wrong victim, a priest who'd spent his life studying creatures like me. He survived because other clergy came. They bound me in silver chains. Beat me. Prepared to execute me. But they didn't. No. Because I begged. The memory still burned. I knelt before them in chains, and begged them to teach me control. To help me become something other than a mindless killer. I offered them everything, servitude, imprisonment, endless penance. Anything but death. They helped you? One did. Father Benedict. He saw something in me, some remnant of the man I'd been. For 10 years. He kept me locked in a church basement, teaching me restraint, bringing me animal blood, showing me how to live with the hunger, instead of surrendering to it. I opened my eyes, meeting Isolde's gaze. He saved me. And when he died, I spent the next 3 centuries trying to honor his mercy, never killing. Never taking more than freely given. Becoming the monster who chose humanity over hunger. Isolde was quiet for a long moment. Then, how old were you when you returned? 28. A scholar studying medicine at Cambridge. I'd just published a paper on blood circulation that was getting attention from the Royal Society. I had a future, a life. And in one night, it all ended. No, Isolde said softly. It transformed. You're still a scholar. I see it in the way you think, the way you speak. You're still trying to heal, even if it's through understanding your own condition. You didn't end, Thaddeus. You just changed paths. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe that my existence held meaning beyond penance. That 300 years of isolation and hunger and rigid control amounted to more than cosmic punishment for 1 month of monstrous weakness. But the bond let her feel my doubt, my self-loathing, my certainty that I'd damned her by accepting her choice instead of pushing her away. Stop, she said firmly. Stop what? Hating yourself through our connection. She shifted, rising on her elbow to look down at me. I can feel it, Thaddeus. This weight you carry, this belief that you don't deserve kindness or choice or, she hesitated, or love. Because I don't. That's not your decision to make. Her hand cupped my face. I chose this bond. I chose you. Not the perfect gentleman you think you need to be. Not some sanitized version of yourself. I chose the vampire who's carried guilt for 3 centuries. Who starved rather than kill. Who fights his nature every single day. You chose wrong. Then I'll be wrong. She leaned down, her forehead resting against mine. I'll be wrong with open eyes and no regrets. Through the bond, I felt her certainty, her stubborn, reckless, beautiful certainty, and beneath it, something else, desire that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with need. She wanted me, not despite what I was, but including it. Isolde, I breathed her name like prayer or curse. You make me want impossible things. Like what? Like a future where I'm not alone. Where this bond isn't a burden, but a gift. Where I can touch you without fearing I'll hurt you. Where I can, I stopped, the words too dangerous to speak aloud. Where you can what? Where I can love you. The confession tore from me. Where I can keep you safe and happy and alive despite everything I am. Where 300 years of darkness ends in light. Isolde's breath hitched. Through the bond, I felt her emotions spike: surprise, pleasure, fear, and beneath it all, a matching desire that made my dead heart ache. Then want impossible things with me, she whispered. Want them loud enough that the universe has to listen. She kissed me then, and it was nothing like our first kiss in the cellar. This was deliberate, deep, laced with understanding of exactly what I was and what she'd chosen. Her mouth moved against mine with a heat that made me remember what it felt like to be human. To want something beyond blood and survival. I pulled her closer, careful despite the hunger singing in my veins. The bond carried her desire back to me, amplified. And I felt what she felt: the electric thrill of my cold skin against her warmth, the dangerous edge of my sharp teeth careful against her lips, the otherworldly strength in my hands that held her like she might shatter. She wasn't afraid. Through our connection, I felt only curiosity, want, and trust so profound it terrified me. Isolde, I managed against her mouth. We should stop. Why? Because I'm holding on to control by a thread. Because your pulse is singing in my veins. Because if we continue, I might. What? Bite me? She pulled back enough to meet my glowing eyes. Feed from me? Bind me tighter to you? Her thumb traced my lower lip, pressing against the tip of one fang. I'm already bound, Thaddeus. Already yours in ways that terrify and thrill me. You can't scare me away by being what you are. I could hurt you. You won't. You don't know that. Yes. Her eyes held mine. I do. Because you've spent 3 centuries learning control. Because you'd die before harming me. Because even now, when hunger is riding you hard, you're holding back. Protecting me. Choosing humanity over instinct. Through the bond, I felt her absolute faith in me. Her belief that I was strong enough, disciplined enough, good enough to be trusted with her life, her body, her future. It broke something in me. Or perhaps it healed something, fixed some broken piece that had been shattered the night I was turned and never properly set. What have you done to me? I whispered. Given you permission to be human. She smiled, and in that expression I saw something that would sustain me through eternity. Now, stop overthinking and kiss me again. I did. And for the first time in 300 years, I allowed myself to hope. Chapter 6. Blood Moon Rising. 3 weeks passed like a dream wrapped in darkness. Isolde adapted to nocturnal life with surprising ease, sleeping during sunlight hours pressed against Thaddeus's unnaturally still body, waking at dusk to explore the bond between them. They spent nights in her grandmother's study, poring over ancient texts that documented vampire lore with clinical precision. Blood bonds. Transformation rituals. The various methods hunters use to kill their kind. Your grandmother was preparing you, Thaddeus observed one evening, his finger tracing a diagram of vampire anatomy. These books, they're not just research. They're training manuals. She knew you'd inherit me along with the estate. Isolde looked up from a journal filled with Margaret Gray's careful script. She wrote about you. Listen to this. Thaddeus believes himself beyond redemption, but I've watched him choose mercy over hunger for 40 years. If I should die before him, Isolde must understand he is not the monster he thinks he is. He is a man cursed with impossible hunger who chooses humanity every single day. Protect him as I have. But more than that, see him. Truly see him. He has been alone long enough. Thaddeus went very still. She loved you, Isolde said quietly, in her way. She pitied me. No, she understood you. There's a difference. Isolde closed the journal. She knew what it cost you to stay here, to accept imprisonment over freedom, to let her contain you when you could have escaped. I couldn't escape. Not with the binding. You could have compelled her to release you. Even weakened, you had that power. I've felt it, Thaddeus. When you rewrote the hunter's memories, you're strong enough to influence human minds. She met his glowing gaze. You chose to stay. Not because you had to. Because you wanted to. He looked away, but not before she felt it through the bond shame and longing twisted together. This place became home. Margaret became important. Not as food, never that, but as the only person in 300 years who saw me as more than a monster. Until me. Until you. His hand found hers across the desk. And now I'm terrified I'll lose you, the same way I lost her. The hunters have found nothing so far. Thaddeus's jaw tightened. The memory alteration held. But it's temporary. Eventually they'll remember. Eventually they'll return with reinforcements. The order doesn't forgive those who harbor vampires. Then we leave. And go where? I'm bound to you now. Wherever you go, I follow. But I'm also what I am, a creature that can't tolerate sunlight, that needs blood to survive, that will draw attention wherever we settle. The order has chapters across Europe. Across the world, there's nowhere safe. Isolde stood, moving to the window. Outside, the moon hung full and heavy, its light painting the garden silver. My grandmother protected you for 40 years. Surely there's a way to... She stopped. In the garden below, something moved. Not a servant. Not an animal. A figure draped in dark cloth, standing perfectly still beneath the old oak tree. As Isolde watched, the figure lifted its head, and moonlight caught eyes that glowed not red like Thaddeus's, but gold. Bright, burning gold. Thaddeus. Her voice came out strangled. He was beside her in an instant, following her gaze. His entire body went rigid. No. What is it? Another vampire. The words carried centuries of dread. And not just any vampire. That's Lucian Ashford, the one who turned me. Cold horror washed through Isolde. Your sire. Yes. Thaddeus pulled her away from the window, his movements sharp with panic. He's found me. After all these years, he's found me. But how? The blood bond. He paced the study like a caged predator. When you broke my binding, when we connected through blood and magic, it sent out a signal. A ripple through the supernatural world. Any vampire sensitive enough would have felt it. Would have recognized my signature. And he came looking. Lucian doesn't look. He collects. Thaddeus's hands fisted. He believes in building covens. Creating families bound by blood and power. He's spent centuries turning people against their will, binding them to him through sire bonds. I escaped that fate because I was weak when he abandoned me, but if he finds me now, finds us. A knock echoed through the manor. Not at the front door, closer. At the study itself. Thaddeus Ravencroft. The voice that came through the wood was smooth as honey and cold as winter. I know you're in there. I felt you wake from your long imprisonment. Felt the bond you forged with the mortal. How? Unexpected. Thaddeus positioned himself between Isolde and the door. Stay behind me. Whatever happens, stay behind me. I'm not letting you face him alone. He's stronger than I am, older. He could kill you with a thought, then he'll have to go through both of us. Isolde moved to stand beside him, not behind. Together. Remember? Through the bond, she felt his terror warring with pride. Then his hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. Together, he agreed quietly. The study door opened. Lucian Ashford entered like royalty surveying a conquered domain. He was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful, all sharp angles and dangerous grace. Dressed in modern clothes that couldn't quite hide the ancient power radiating from him. His golden eyes swept the room, cataloging everything, before landing on Thaddeus. My prodigal son, he said with a smile that held no warmth. 300 years I've searched for you. 300 years wondering where my most promising creation had vanished to. And here you are, playing house with a mortal in this quaint little manor. I'm not your creation, Lucian. I'm your victim. Semantics. Lucian's gaze shifted to Isolde, and she felt the weight of it like physical pressure. And who is this? Your companion? Your pet? Your food source? She's mine. Thaddeus's voice dropped to a growl. And you'll leave her alone. Or what? You'll fight me? Lucian laughed sharp, cruel, ancient. You're strong. I'll grant you that. Stronger than when I left you bleeding in that alley. But you're still weak compared to me, still bound by your precious morality. Still pretending you're something other than what you are. What I am is someone who chooses not to be like you. How noble. Lucien moved deeper into the room with fluid grace. Tell me, does your mortal know what you've really been doing these past 40 years? Does she know about the villagers you've watched from the shadows? The children whose scent makes your fangs ache? The nights you've stood at her window while she slept, fighting the urge to drain her dry? Isolde felt Thaddeus flinch through the bond. He told me, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. About his hunger, his struggle, his choice to resist. How touching. Lucien's smile widened. But choices change when you're starving. When you're weak. When you're offered something you can't refuse. He moved with vampire speed, crossing the distance between them in a blink. His hand shot out, catching Isolde by the throat, lifting her off her feet. Thaddeus roared, lunging forward, but Lucien's other hand stopped him with casual ease. Let her go. Thaddeus's eyes blazed crimson. Lucien, let her. She's nothing. Lucien's grip tightened on Isolde's throat. A mortal playing at immortal games. A temporary distraction from your true nature. I came here to bring you home, Thaddeus. To welcome you back into the fold. To show you what power we could wield together. Black spots danced across Isolde's vision. She clawed at Lucien's hand, but it was like fighting stone. But if she's what's keeping you weak, Lucien continued, then perhaps she needs to be removed. No. Thaddeus's scream shook the manor. Power exploded from him raw, primal, born of desperation and rage. It slammed into Lucien like a physical blow, sending him stumbling back. Isolde dropped, gasping, her throat burning. Thaddeus caught her before she hit the ground, pulling her against his chest. Are you hurt? Isolde, answer me. I'm fine, she choked out. Lucien's laughter filled the study. There it is. The power you've been suppressing, the strength you inherited from me. He straightened, brushing dust from his coat. You felt it, didn't you? When you thought she'd die. When you imagined losing her. All that precious control you've built it shattered. And what emerged was the true predator beneath. Thaddeus was shaking. Through the bond, Isolde felt his emotions churning rage, terror, hunger so intense it bordered on madness. His eyes blazed brighter than she'd ever seen them, and when his lips pulled back, his fangs were fully extended. That's right, Lucien purred. Let it out. Stop pretending you're human. Stop fighting what you are. I'm not, Thaddeus's voice broke. I'm not like you. You're exactly like me. You just haven't accepted it yet. Lucien moved toward them slowly, a cat toying with prey. But you will. Because the bond you've forged with this mortal, it's not salvation, Thaddeus. It's a leash. She'll age while you stay frozen. She'll sicken, die, turn to dust. And you'll be alone again. Unless. He let the word hang. Unless what? Isolde managed. Lucien's golden eyes fixed on her. Unless you join us. Let Thaddeus turn you. Become what he is. Share his immortality, his power, his hunger. Then you could be together, forever. No. Thaddeus's arms tightened around Isolde. I won't turn her. I won't curse her with this existence. Even if it's what she wants? It's not. Ask her. Lucien smiled. Look into your precious bond and ask her if she's considered it. If she's thought about growing old while you stay young. If she's wondered what eternity with you might be like. Thaddeus looked down at Isolde, and through the bond she felt him searching her emotions, finding the truth she'd tried to hide. She had thought about it. In quiet moments. In the space between sleep and waking. The idea of transformation, of choosing immortality, of never having to leave him. Isolde. His voice cracked on her name. I didn't want you to know, she whispered. Didn't want you to feel obligated or... See? Lucien spread his hands. She's already halfway there. Already imagining herself as one of us. All you have to do is say yes. Turn her. Bind her to you completely. And then join my coven. We could be a family, Thaddeus. You, your bride, and 100 others like us. No more hiding. No more shame. No more pretending we're something we're not. The offer hung in the air, tempting and terrible. And in that moment, Isolde felt Thaddeus's hunger spike through their bond. Felt his desperate longing to never lose her. Felt him standing at the edge of a choice that would define their eternity. What do you say, my son? Lucien extended his hand. Will you finally come home? Chapter 7, The Choice of Fangs. Thaddeus stood frozen, his body a coiled spring of tension and longing. Through the bond, Isolde felt his war 300 years of discipline crashing against desire so profound it had weight. He wanted to say yes, wanted to turn her, bind her, keep her forever in the darkness with him. The hunger for it was so intense it made her own pulse quicken. But beneath that want, something else burned, something that had kept him human despite everything. Choice. No, Thaddeus said quietly. Lucien's smile faltered. What? No. Louder now. I won't turn her without her true consent. Not influenced by your manipulation. Not in this moment when you're standing here threatening her life. And I won't join your coven. Not now, not ever. Golden eyes narrowed to slits. You're refusing me. I've been refusing you for 3 centuries. Thaddeus set Isolde carefully behind him, his movements deliberate. You made me what I am against my will. Force this curse on me and abandon me to figure it out alone. You don't get to decide my future now. I created you. That gives me every right. You created a monster. I made myself into something else. Thaddeus's voice carried steel now, and I won't let you turn Isolde into what I became. Frightened, alone, starving and killing because I didn't understand what was happening. If she chooses transformation, it will be on her terms. With full knowledge. With preparation. With me there to guide her through every moment. Not this. Lucien's expression darkened. You're making a mistake. Then it's mine to make. She'll die, Thaddeus. Mortals always do. And you'll be alone again. Is that what you want? Another century of isolation? Another eternity of watching everyone you care about crumble to dust? If that's the price of giving her choice, yes. Something shifted in Lucien's demeanor. The casual predator vanished, replaced by something ancient and cold and utterly merciless. I tried to do this gently. For old time's sake. But I see you need motivation. He moved. Not toward Thaddeus. Toward the window. Toward the moonlit gardens where Isolde's heart stopped. Figures emerged from the shadows. Dozens of them, all with glowing eyes, gold, red, amber, green. A rainbow of inhuman luminescence surrounding the manor. My coven, Lucien said pleasantly, 50 vampires, all bound to me. All willing to do whatever I command. Including burning this quaint little estate to the ground with you inside it. You'd kill your own creation. I'd teach you a lesson. Lucien's smile returned, sharp as blades. But it won't come to that. Because you're going to make the right choice. You're going to turn the girl, join my family, and together, we'll build an empire that will make the Order of the Sacred Dawn tremble. Thaddeus's hands clenched. Through the bond, Isolde felt his calculations running escape routes, defensive positions, the odds of fighting 50 vampires and surviving. 0. The odds were 0. And if I refuse? Thaddeus asked. Then I'll turn her myself. Force the transformation. Make her mine instead of yours. She'll rise as my progeny, bound to me, and you'll spend eternity watching her serve my will. Lucien's eyes glowed brighter. Or I'll simply kill her, drain her in front of you, let you feel her die through your precious bond, then drag you to my coven in chains. Isolde's throat tightened. She'd thought she understood what Thaddeus had been protecting her from. But this was worse than hunger or hunters or even transformation. This was slavery, becoming a pawn in someone else's game. You have until dawn, Lucien continued. Make your choice. Join me willingly or I'll take what I want by force. Either way, this ends with you in my coven. He turned and walked out, leaving the study door hanging open behind him. Through the window, the gathered vampires remained a silent audience waiting for the inevitable conclusion. Thaddeus sagged against the desk, his strength visibly draining. I'm sorry. God, Isolde, I'm so sorry. I thought I could protect you. Thought being bound to me would keep you safe. But I've just painted a target on your back. Isolde moved to him, taking his face in her hands. Stop apologizing for being what you are. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. If I'd pushed you away in the cellar, then I'd be alone right now, facing this without understanding, without the bond. She pressed her forehead to his. At least now we face it together. There's no together in what he's offering. Thaddeus's voice broke. If I turn you now, under duress, you'll hate me. If I join his coven, we both become slaves. And if I refuse, he kills me. Yes. They stood in silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them. Outside, the moon continued its arc across the sky. Dawn was perhaps 4 hours away, 4 hours to decide between damnation and death. Through the bond, Isolde felt Thaddeus's thoughts spiraling, contingency plans forming and collapsing. He was searching for a way out, some clever solution that would save them both, but there wasn't one. Lucien had planned too carefully, had too many resources, too much power. They were trapped. Unless. Turn me, Isolde said suddenly. Thaddeus's head snapped up. What? Turn me. Now. Before dawn. But do it right. The way you wish someone had done for you. She gripped his shoulders. Explain everything. Prepare me. Make it my choice, not his threat. Then we face the coven together. 2 vampires instead of 1 human and 1 exhausted predator. Isolde, no. You can't. I can. And I choose to. Her voice steadied. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Before Lucien arrived. Before his ultimatum. I've felt your loneliness through the bond. Felt the weight of immortality pressing on you. And I've wondered what it would be like to share that burden, instead of adding to it by dying. You'd be giving up everything. Sunlight, aging, children, a normal life. I'd be gaining everything that matters. She met his glowing eyes. You. Eternity. A chance to face the darkness together, instead of watching you face it alone. That's worth more than sunlight. You don't understand what you're asking. The transformation is agony. The first months are hell hunger so intense it obliterates thought. I'd have to teach you control, help you navigate bloodlust. And even then, there's no guarantee you'd forgive me for making you what I am. Then I'll have eternity to decide if I forgive you. Isolde smiled, though fear trembled through her. But I'd rather be a vampire with you than a corpse without you. And I'd rather make this choice while it's still mine to make. Thaddeus was shaking. Through the bond, she felt his emotions crashing, love and horror, and desperate hope all tangled together. He wanted this. Wanted her forever. But he'd spent 3 centuries believing he didn't deserve such happiness. What if I hurt you? He whispered. What if I take too much? What if? Then I trust you to stop before it's too late. Isolde pressed a kiss to his cold lips. 300 years of control, remember? You won't lose it now. But Lucien expects you to turn me anyway. We're just doing it on our terms. Robbing him of the leverage he thinks he has. She pulled back, holding his gaze. And then tomorrow night, when I rise, we'll face his coven together. We'll find a way to escape, to survive. Because that's what we do. There might not be a way to escape. Then we'll make one. Her hand found his, lacing their fingers together. Together. For a long moment, Thaddeus didn't move, didn't speak. Just stared at her with eyes that held 3 centuries of loneliness and suddenly, impossibly, hope. Then he kissed her. Not gentle, not careful. This was desperate and claiming. A kiss that tasted of goodbye and hello and forever all at once. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her close, and through the bond she felt him surrendering to hope, to love, to the terrifying possibility that maybe, this could work. Are you certain? He breathed against her lips. Completely. There's no going back. I don't want to go back. Isolde looked into those glowing red eyes. I want to go forward. With you. For as long as forever lasts. Thaddeus made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Then he pulled her toward the settee, sitting and drawing her into his lap. His fingers traced her throat, finding her pulse. I'll explain everything first. Every step. Every sensation. And if at any point you want to stop, I won't. If you want to stop, he continued firmly, you tell me. Promise me, Isolde. Promise you'll speak if you're afraid. I promise. He nodded slowly. Then began talking, his voice steady despite the trembling in his hands. He explained the venom in his bite, the way it would burn through her veins, rewriting her from mortal to immortal, the death that would claim her body. The 3 days of agony as transformation took hold. The hunger she'd wake to. All of it. Every terrible detail. And Isolde listened. Her fear growing but never overshadowing her certainty. This was right, not easy, not safe. But right in ways she couldn't fully articulate. Last chance. Thaddeus whispered, his lips hovering over her pulse. Tell me to stop, and we'll find another way. There is no other way. Isolde tilted her head, baring her throat. And I choose this. I choose you. God help us both. His mouth descended. The first touch of his lips was gentle, almost reverent. He kissed her pulse point, then traced it with his tongue, and Isolde felt him trembling with restraint. I love you, he whispered against her skin. I never said it. But I love you, Isolde Grey. And I'll love you through eternity. Then show me. She pressed closer. Turn me. Make me yours. His fangs pierced her throat. Pain exploded through her sharp and burning and so intense it stole her breath. But behind it, something else bloomed. Connection. Power. The bond between them flaring to impossible brightness, as his venom entered her bloodstream. He drank slowly, carefully, each pull measured. Not taking for hunger but for transformation. She felt her life draining, felt her heartbeat growing weaker, felt darkness pressing at the edges of her vision. Too much, some distant part of her screamed. He's taking too much. But Thaddeus knew exactly what he was doing, knew the precise moment between death and transformation. At the last possible second, he pulled away. Her blood stained his lips as he bit his own wrist. Dark fluid welled, and he pressed it to her mouth. Drink, he commanded. Drink and live. Isolde's instinct was to resist, but her body knew what it needed. Her mouth opened, and she drank. Vampire blood tasted like lightning and ice and copper. It burned going down, but she couldn't stop. Couldn't get enough. Her hands came up to grip Thaddeus's wrist, holding it to her mouth as she swallowed and swallowed and swallowed. Until he pulled away. Enough, he said gently. That's enough. Isolde collapsed against him, her body convulsing. The venom was spreading now, she could feel it, burning through every vein, every cell, rewriting her biology. Her heart stuttered, stopped, beat once more, then stopped again. Thaddeus, she gasped. I can't breathe. You don't need to. He cradled her, his voice steady, despite the fear she felt through the bond. Your body is dying, it's supposed to. Let it happen, let go. I'm scared. I know. But I'm here, I'll be here when you wake. I promise. He pressed kisses to her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Sleep now. Sleep and transform. And when you rise, you'll be magnificent. Isolde's vision faded. Her heartbeat slowed to nothing, and the last thing she felt before darkness claimed her was Thaddeus's arms around her, solid and sure. A promise that she wouldn't wake alone. Chapter 8, Awakening in Crimson. 2 nights later, Isolde woke to hunger. Not the gentle hunger of missing a meal. This was violent, all-consuming, a need so profound it eclipsed thought. Her throat burned. Her gums ached. Every cell in her body screamed for something she couldn't name but desperately needed. Blood. She sat up with a gasp or tried to. Her body moved too fast, too strong, sending her tumbling off the settee and crashing into the study wall. The stone cracked under the impact. Easy. Thaddeus's voice came from somewhere nearby. Your body is different now. Stronger. Faster. Everything is amplified. Isolde turned toward him and the world exploded. She could truly see for the first time. Every detail sharp and clear even in the darkness. The grain of wood on the desk. The dust motes floating in air. The individual threads of Thaddeus's coat. And his eyes, those glowing red eyes that now looked familiar, right? Because her own eyes were glowing too, she could feel it. I can. Her voice came out strange, layered with harmonics that shouldn't exist. I can see everything. The predator's gift. Thaddeus moved closer slowly. His hands visible and non-threatening. Your senses are heightened. Sight, smell, hearing all enhanced beyond human capability. But the hunger is what you're feeling most right now. It's okay. I have. The scent hit her mid-sentence. Blood, fresh and warm and alive. Somewhere in the manor, hearts were beating, pulses were singing, and her newly transformed body wanted nothing more than to hunt. Servants, she breathed. There are people in the house. I sent them away. Told them you were ill and needed privacy. But there are animals in the gardens. I brought them in from the village, rabbits. Chickens. Enough to take the edge off until you learn control. I don't want animals. The words came out before she could stop them. I can smell humans. In the village. Their blood is calling to me. I know. Thaddeus's voice was gentle but firm. But you're not going to feed on humans. Not tonight. Not until you've learned control. How long did it take you? 10 years. Horror crashed through the hunger. 10 years? With me alone and locked in a church basement. But you have me to guide you. It won't take as long. I promise. He held out his hand. Come. Let me show you how to manage the hunger without surrendering to it. Isolde looked at his offered hand, and through the bond stronger now, blazing between them, she felt his emotions. Pride that she'd survived. Fear that she'd hate him. Hope that they could face what came next together. The hunger raged, but beneath it, something else stirred. The part of her that was still Isolde Grey, still human despite the monster she'd become. That part reached for Thaddeus's hand. He pulled her close, and she marveled at the feeling. He wasn't cold anymore, not to her new senses. They were the same temperature now, both creatures of death and night. Both predators. Both damned. I don't regret it, she said quietly. Relief flooded through the bond. I thought you might. Thought when you woke to the hunger. I'm terrified. But I'm not alone. She looked up at him. That makes all the difference. Thaddeus pressed his forehead to hers. Through the bond, their connection had deepened impossibly. She could feel his heartbeat or lack thereof. Could sense his thoughts brushing against hers. Could taste his emotions like flavors on her tongue. This is what forever feels like, she realized. This intimacy, this connection, this terrible, beautiful curse. A knock echoed through the manor. Not at the door. Closer. Right outside the study. Lucien's voice carried through the wood, smooth and satisfied. I know you're awake, fledgling. I felt your transformation complete, felt the bond between you and Thaddeus solidify into something extraordinary. A pause. Come out. Both of you. Dawn is still hours away, and we have much to discuss. Thaddeus's jaw tightened. Can you walk? Control your movements. I think so. Isolde took a step, then another. Her body wanted to move too fast. But she forced herself to human speed. What does he want? To claim us. To add us to his coven. Thaddeus moved to the door, but he's in for a surprise. You're not what he expected. What do you mean? You transformed faster than normal. Survived the change with your mind intact. And the bond between us, it's stronger than any I've ever felt. He'll want to understand why. To use it. Thaddeus looked at her, his expression unreadable. We can't let him. Then what do we do? Fight. Flee. Improvise. A smile ghosted his lips. Be magnificently reckless. Isolde felt an answering smile tug at her mouth and felt her fangs extend. Sharp. Deadly. Ready to tear and rend. The hunger surged again, but she pushed it down. Focused on Thaddeus. On the bond. On the future they'd chosen together. Together? She asked. Forever, he answered. They opened the door. Lucien stood in the corridor, flanked by two of his coven. His golden eyes swept over Isolde, assessing her with predatory interest. Magnificent. Thaddeus, you've outdone yourself. She's stronger than most fledglings. More controlled. And the glow in her eyes, fascinating. I've never seen that particular shade of crimson. She's not for your collection, Thaddeus said flatly. Everything is for my collection, eventually. Lucien gestured toward the main hall. Come. My coven waits. We'll perform the binding ceremony tonight, tie you both to me properly. Then we can begin your education. Teach you what true power looks like. And if we refuse, then I'll kill you both and be disappointed. I wasted time on a disobedient son. Lucien's smile never wavered. But you won't refuse. Because you love her, Thaddeus. And you'll do anything to keep her safe. even submit. Isolde felt Thaddeus's rage through the bond, felt his calculations running, felt his desperate search for options that didn't exist. But she also felt something else. A memory from her grandmother's journals. A passage about vampire hierarchy and sire bonds and, "The bond can be challenged," she said suddenly. Both vampires looked at her. "What?" Lucien's smile faltered. "Sire bonds, they can be challenged. I read it in my grandmother's research. If a vampire believes their sire is unworthy, they can issue a formal challenge. Combat to the death. Winner takes the loser's place in the hierarchy." Lucien's expression darkened. "That law is ancient. Unused for centuries. No one. I challenge you." Thaddeus stepped forward, placing himself between Isolde and Lucien. "For my freedom. For hers. For every vampire you've turned against their will and bound to your service. I challenge your right to rule." Silence crashed through the corridor. Then Lucien laughed sharp and cruel. "You? Challenge me? I'm 3 times your age. 10 times your strength. You'll be ash before you land a blow." "Maybe." Thaddeus's eyes blazed. "But the challenge stands. You can accept and prove your strength. Or refuse and prove you're a coward who hides behind numbers." Golden eyes narrowed. "If I accept, your fledgling becomes mine when you die." "No." Isolde stepped forward. "If you accept and win, I'll dissolve. Take silver and end myself rather than serve you. And every vampire here will know you couldn't win me through strength. Only through threats." Lucien's jaw clenched. Through the bond, Isolde felt Thaddeus's pride and terror mixing. This was insane. Suicidal. But it was also the only option that didn't end in slavery. "Very well." Lucien's voice dropped to something ancient and cold. "I accept your challenge, Thaddeus Ravencroft. We fight at the Blood Moon's peak, 1 hour from now. In the garden where I first made you. Winner takes all. Loser turns to ash." He turned and stalked away, his coven following. Thaddeus sagged against the wall the moment they were gone. "What have we done? Bought ourselves a chance." Isolde gripped his hand. "You can win this. I know you can." He's right about the age difference. The strength difference. I haven't fed properly in months. Haven't fought another vampire in decades. The odds don't matter." She pulled him close. "Because you're not fighting alone anymore. I'm here. And through the bond. My strength is yours. My will is yours. We face this together, just like we face everything." Thaddeus looked at her, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. Not defeat, not despair. Determination. "Then we'd better prepare," he said quietly. "Because in 1 hour, everything changes." Chapter 9, Blood Moon Duel. The garden was transformed. Lucien's coven had gathered in a circle around the ancient oak where Isolde had first seen him standing. 50 vampires with glowing eyes, gold, crimson, amber, violet, creating a ring of inhuman luminescence. Above them, the blood moon hung fat and red, its light painting everything in shades of burgundy and shadow. A killing ground dressed in ceremony. Isolde stood at the circle's edge, every newly awakened sense screaming danger. She could smell the age on these vampires, centuries of existence emanating from them like perfume. Could hear their hearts not beating, their lungs pulling air out of habit rather than need. Could feel their hunger, controlled but present, waiting for violence to feed it. And in the center of it all stood Lucien, bathed in moonlight, beautiful and terrible as a fallen angel. "The challenge has been accepted," he announced to the gathered coven. "Thaddeus Ravencroft contests my authority, contests my right to claim him and his fledgling. We will settle this the old way, blood and ash, no interference, no mercy, fight until one of us is dust." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some vampires looked excited, others disturbed. A few, the older ones, watched with ancient eyes that had seen this play out before. Thaddeus stepped into the circle. He'd fed before coming animal blood from the stock he'd kept, enough to give him strength but not enough to truly satisfy. Through the bond, Isolde felt his body adjusting, preparing, channeling 300 years of discipline into this single moment. "Any last words?" Lucien asked with a smile that held no warmth. "Yes." Thaddeus's voice carried across the garden. "To everyone here who was turned against their will. Who serves Lucien out of fear rather than choice. Know that chains can be broken, that sire bonds can be challenged, that you don't have to live as slaves. Several vampires flinched. Others looked away. But a handful met Thaddeus's gaze with something that looked like hope. Lucien's smile vanished. Enough philosophy. Let's see if your actions match your pretty words. He attacked. One moment he stood 20 feet away. The next, he was a blur of motion and violence, closing the distance in an eye blink. His hand caught Thaddeus's throat, lifting him off the ground and slamming him into the oak tree hard enough to crack the ancient wood. 300 years you've wasted, Lucien hissed. Starving yourself. Denying your nature, playing at humanity. And for what? You're still the weak, pathetic creature I made in that alley. Thaddeus's hand shot up, catching Lucien's wrist. Power flared, not physical strength alone, but something deeper. The bond between him and Isolde blazed like a star, feeding him strength that shouldn't be possible. He twisted. Lucien's grip broke with an audible snap. The ancient vampire stumbled back, genuine surprise flashing across his perfect features. I'm not weak, Thaddeus said quietly. Dropping to his feet. I'm disciplined. There's a difference. He moved faster than Isolde had seen him move before. Faster than should be possible for a vampire his age. His fist connected with Lucien's chest, sending the older vampire stumbling. Another blow caught him across the jaw. A third drove into his ribs. Through the bond, Isolde felt Thaddeus drawing on their connection. Using her newly transformed strength, her fledgling power that hadn't yet learned its limits. The blood bond was feeding him, amplifying him, turning their joined will into something formidable. But Lucien was ancient. He recovered with a snarl, his eyes blazing gold-white. Power exploded from him raw, primal, the accumulated strength of 7 centuries of existence. It slammed into Thaddeus like a physical wall, driving him to his knees. Clever, Lucien growled. Using your bond to augment your strength. But it won't be enough. I've killed challengers stronger than you. Faster than you. More experienced than you. You're nothing but an upstart with delusions of. Thaddeus swept Lucien's legs. The ancient vampire went down hard, and before he could recover, Thaddeus was on him. Fangs extended, aiming for the throat, the killing blow that would end this. Lucien caught his wrist inches from contact. Nice try. He hurled Thaddeus across the garden. The younger vampire crashed through a stone bench, sending fragments of marble flying. Blood black in the moonlight welled from cuts across his back and shoulders. Isolde felt his pain through the bond like it was her own. Felt his ribs cracking, healing, cracking again. Felt exhaustion pulling at him despite the blood he'd consumed. He was strong, yes. Fast, yes. But Lucien was stronger. This wasn't going to work. They'd been fools to think it could. Unless. An idea sparked in Isolde's mind, dangerous. Possibly fatal. But their only chance. She stepped into the circle. What are you doing? Thaddeus shouted, struggling to his feet. Isolde, get back. The challenge was issued, Isolde said, her voice carrying across the garden. But it didn't specify who would fight. Lucien's eyes snapped to her. You? A fledgling barely 2 nights old? You think you can? I challenge you too. She moved toward the center of the circle, ignoring Thaddeus's protests. Not to replace Thaddeus's challenge. To join it. 2 against 1. If you're as strong as you claim, it shouldn't matter. Murmurs exploded through the gathered vampires. This was unprecedented. Unheard of. The old laws didn't account for. Accepted. Lucien said with a smile that was all teeth. Let it be known that Lucien Ashford killed both sire and fledgling in the same night. That I crushed rebellion before it could take root. That my strength is. Isolde attacked. She didn't know strategy, didn't understand vampire combat. But she had something Lucien didn't expect, the reckless desperation of someone with nothing to lose and everything to protect. Her fist caught him in the temple. He staggered, more from surprise than pain. She pressed the advantage, moving with speed her new body barely understood, letting instinct guide her. Claw, bite, tear, ancient predator memories waking in her blood. Lucien recovered quickly, his hand catching her throat. Brave but foolish, fledgling, now you die. Thaddeus hit him from behind. The two of them, sire and progeny, connected by blood and hatred, crashed into Lucien together. Thaddeus went for his throat while Isolde clawed at his face, his chest, anywhere vulnerable. Through their bond, they moved in sync, each anticipating the other's actions, fighting not as individuals but as a single united force. And for the first time, genuine fear flashed across Lucien's perfect features. Impossible, he choked out, throwing them both back. You're too weak, too young. Together we're not. Thaddeus and Isolde stood side by side, their bond blazing so brightly it was almost visible. That's what you never understood, Lucien. You build covens through domination and fear. But real strength comes from choice. From bonds forged willingly, from love. Love? Lucien spat blood, his own blood. Love is weakness. It makes you hesitate. Makes you vulnerable. Makes you human, Isolde finished. It makes us human. And that's what you fear most, isn't it? Not that we'll be stronger than you, but that we'll be better than you. That will prove your way isn't the only way. Lucien's expression twisted with rage. Enough talking. Power exploded from him, not physical, but psychic. Compulsion so strong it should have dropped them both to their knees. Ancient magic that commanded obedience, submission, surrender. It crashed against their bond and shattered. Because they weren't separate vampires anymore, they were something new, something Lucien's sire bond couldn't touch because it wasn't based on domination, it was based on choice. On love. No, Thaddeus said simply. They moved as one. Thaddeus went high, Isolde went low. They hit Lucien from both sides, driving him into the ground. Fangs found flesh. Claws found bone. And through it all, their bond burned brighter, feeding them strength neither possessed alone. Lucien screamed a sound of rage and disbelief, and finally, after 7 centuries, fear. This isn't possible, he choked. I made you. You're mine. No. Thaddeus's fangs hovered over Lucien's throat. I was never yours. I was stolen, forced, cursed. But I chose to make something better from that curse. Chose to fight my nature instead of surrendering to it. Chose to protect instead of prey. His eyes met Isolde's across Lucien's prone form. Chose to love instead of dominate. Sentimental fool, Lucien hissed. You'll regret this. My coven will. Your coven is free. Isolde's voice rang out across the garden. The challenge is complete. Lucien has lost. And according to the old laws, that breaks his hold on everyone. He's bound. Gasps echoed through the gathered vampires. Some looked confused, others hopeful. A few, the ones who'd been with Lucien longest, looked terrified of sudden freedom they didn't know how to use. The law states, an ancient voice said from the crowd, that when a sire is defeated in formal challenge, all bonds he's created dissolve. We are. The vampire paused, wonder and horror mixing in his tone. We are free. Lucien's golden eyes blazed with hatred. This isn't over. Even if you kill me, even if you destroy me, there are others like me. The order hunts you. My allies will seek vengeance. You've won nothing but temporary. Thaddeus bit down. Not to drain, not to kill, but to inject his own venom, a counter magic that would ensure Lucien couldn't heal, couldn't recover, couldn't rise again. Ancient technique, learned from Father Benedict, used only in the most extreme circumstances. Lucien's body began to dissolve. Not violently. Almost peacefully. Turning to ash that scattered in the night breeze, until nothing remained but the memory of 7 centuries of tyranny finally ended. Silence crashed over the garden. 50 vampires stood free for the first time in years, decades, centuries. Some wept, others stared in shock. A few, the ones who'd been with Lucien longest, simply dissolved themselves, unable to face existence without their chains. But most remained. And they looked at Thaddeus and Isolde with expressions ranging from gratitude, to curiosity to calculation. What happens now? Someone asked. Thaddeus looked at Isolde. Then back at the gathered vampires. That's your choice. You're free. No bonds. No compulsion. No master. You can leave, start over, find new ways to exist. Or, he paused. Or you can stay. Build something different. A coven based on choice instead of domination. On protecting each other instead of preying on the weak. And you would lead this coven? The ancient vampire who'd spoken before stepped forward. His eyes were silver, impossibly old, and they held something that looked like respect. You who defeated Lucien? You who proved bonds of love are stronger than bonds of blood? No. Thaddeus shook his head. I don't want to lead. Don't want to rule. I just want to exist without hurting anyone. Want to build a life and eternity with Isolde. Want to prove that vampires can be more than monsters. The ancient vampire smiled. Then perhaps we don't need a leader. Perhaps we need an example. He looked around at the gathered coven. I vote we disband. Let each find their own path. But we remember this night. Remember that freedom is possible. That choice matters. That love. He glanced at Thaddeus and Isolde. That love is real power. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. One by one, the vampires began to disperse. Some disappeared into shadow. Others walked away with purposeful strides, heading toward futures they'd thought impossible. A handful lingered, asking questions, seeking guidance, wanting to understand how Thaddeus had maintained control for 3 centuries. He answered them all with patience and honesty. And Isolde stood beside him, feeling the bond between them settle into something permanent and profound. They'd faced death together, fought together, won together. This was what forever looked like. Chapter 10, Dawn's Mercy. The garden emptied as dawn approached. Thaddeus and Isolde stood alone beneath the blood moon. Surrounded by scattered ash and broken stone, evidence of the battle that had changed everything. Through their bond, exhaustion pulled at both of them, but beneath it ran something else. Relief, joy, impossible, beautiful hope. We should get inside, Thaddeus said quietly, looking toward the eastern horizon where the sky was beginning to gray. Sunrise will kill us both now. Just another moment. Isolde laced her fingers through his. I want to remember this. The night we became free. We're still hunted. The order will come eventually. There will be others like Lucien who. I know. She turned to face him. But tonight, we won. Tonight, we proved that love is stronger than fear. That's worth celebrating. Thaddeus pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Through the bond, she felt his emotions wonder that they'd survived, terror of what came next, love so profound it had weight. I thought I'd lose you, he whispered. When you stepped into that circle, when you challenged Lucien, I thought I'd watch you die. Thought I'd feel it through the bond and be unable to stop it. But you didn't lose me, we won. Isolde pulled back to look at him. Together. Just like we'll face whatever comes next. Together. Forever, he agreed. Then smiled a real smile, not the careful expression he usually wore. God help us both. Too late for divine intervention. Isolde grinned back, feeling her fangs extend. We're well and truly damned now. Then we'll make the best of damnation. They walked back to the manor, hand in hand, vampire predators in love, leaving the blood moon behind. The house waited for them, Thornwick Manor, with its secrets and shadows and the promise of sanctuary. At least for now. Inside, they sealed the windows with heavy curtains, ensuring no sunrise could penetrate. The servants would return tomorrow night, and there would be questions to answer, stories to craft, a new normal to establish. But for now, they climbed the stairs to Isolde's bedroom, their bedroom, and collapsed onto the bed together. I can't believe I'll never see sunrise again, Isolde said quietly, staring at the covered windows. I'm sorry. Don't be. She rolled to face him. I chose this. Chose you. Chose eternity in darkness over a lifetime alone in light. And I don't regret it. You might, someday. When decades have passed and you realize what you've given up, then I'll have decades with you to figure out if it was worth it. Isolde traced his face with her fingers, the sharp cheekbones, the elegant nose, the lips that had killed and kissed her. I suspect it will be. Thaddeus caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. I love you, Isolde Grey. Vampire, human. Whatever you are, I love you. I love you too. She pulled him closer. My blind vampire who saw me more clearly than anyone. My cursed lord who chose redemption over revenge. My eternal companion. Quite the mouthful. We have eternity. I'll come up with more titles. He laughed, a sound of pure joy that Isolde felt through the bond like sunshine. Then he kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. Not the desperate kisses of before, when death threatened and time was short. This was the kiss of forever acknowledged, of commitment made and honored, of love that would outlast darkness. When they finally pulled apart, dawn was minutes away. Isolde felt it in her bones, some new instinct warning her that death approached with the sun. Her body wanted to sleep, to surrender to the day death that claimed all vampires. Will it hurt? She asked. The day sleep? No. It's like falling into nothing, dreamless and complete. You'll close your eyes, and when you open them again, it will be dusk. Thaddeus settled beside her, pulling her close. And I'll be right here. I promise. You'd better be. I'll be very annoyed if I wake up alone after all this. Wouldn't dream of it. They lay together as the world outside brightened. As normal people woke to normal days. As the sun climbed and cast light on a garden marked by ash and battle. But inside Thornwick Manor, in a bedroom sealed against the day, two vampires held each other close. Thaddeus? Isolde murmured as sleep pulled at her. Thank you. For choosing me. For letting me choose you. For giving me forever. His arms tightened. Thank you for seeing me. For not running when you should have. For being brave enough to love a monster. You're not a monster, you're mine. Same thing, perhaps. Isolde smiled against his chest. Then I choose monsters. The day sleep claimed them gently. Two vampires bound by blood and choice. Two souls sharing eternity. Two hearts that no longer beat but still loved with an intensity that defied death itself. Outside, the sun rose on Thornwick Manor. But inside, in the darkness, Isolde and Thaddeus slept. Epilogue, Eternal Twilight. 6 months later. The village of Thornwick had adjusted to its strange new lady. Isolde Grey, now Ravencroft by choice if not by law, only appeared after dark, but her generosity was legendary. The sick found medicine at their doors. The poor discovered coins in their pockets. The struggling received anonymous aid that always arrived exactly when needed. She was eccentric, certainly. Kept odd hours. Never attended church. Rarely left the manor grounds. But she was kind, and in a world of cruelty, that counted for something. No one questioned why her husband was equally nocturnal, or why they'd never been seen in daylight, or why the manor's curtains remained perpetually drawn. Some secrets were better left unexamined. In the study, Thaddeus pored over Margaret Gray's journals, documenting everything he'd learned about vampire biology. 300 years of observations, refined and organized, ready to be shared with any vampire who sought control over hunger. Another one arrived today, Isolde said, entering with a letter. From Prague. A newly turned vampire asking for guidance. That makes 17 this month. Word is spreading. Thaddeus accepted the letter, reading quickly. They're hearing about what happened with Lucien. About the coven that disbanded. About vampires living without masters. He looked up at her. We're becoming a symbol. Is that bad? Dangerous. But he was smiling. The order won't ignore us forever. Eventually they'll come. Eventually we'll have to face them properly. Then we face them. Isolde perched on his desk. Together. Always together. He pulled her close for a kiss that still made her newly immortal heart ache with want. Though I reserve the right to be terrified when they arrive, I'll be terrified with you. Through their bond, contentment flowed between them, not happiness that seemed too fragile a word for what they'd built, but something deeper, something that acknowledged the darkness they lived in while celebrating the light they'd found within it. They were vampires, predators, creatures cursed to drink blood and hide from the sun. But they were also healers, protectors, proof that monsters could choose humanity even when stripped of it by force. Do you regret it? Thaddeus asked suddenly. Any of it? Isolde considered the question seriously. Thought about sunrises she'd never see again, about food she couldn't taste, about the human life she'd abandoned, about the hunger that woke her every dusk, demanding satisfaction. Then she looked at Thaddeus, her blind vampire, who'd learned to see through centuries of darkness, her cursed lord who'd chosen redemption, her eternal companion who'd given her forever. Not even a little, she said honestly. You? I regret that I didn't find you sooner. That I spent 300 years alone when I could have spent them with you. His hand cupped her face. But I don't regret what we've become. What we're building. A life? An eternity. He pulled her into his lap. One night at a time. One choice at a time. One act of defiance against the darkness at a time. Sounds exhausting. Sounds perfect. Outside, the moon rose over Thornwick Manor. Silver light painted the gardens where ash had scattered 6 months ago. Where freedom had been won through love and violence and impossible choice. Inside, 2 vampires held each other close. And in that moment, suspended between darkness and dawn, between curse and blessing, between eternal hunger and eternal love, they were home. Forever, Isolde whispered. Forever, Thaddeus promised. The night stretched before them, infinite and full of promise. And together, they stepped into it.